I said when it was first announced a foreign buyer ban in Canada was nothing more than political theater and would have little to no impact on Canada's real estate market. CMHC knew this, the government of Canada knew this, and yet this ban still went ahead. And I'm going to put ban in giant quotations because they've already gone ahead and amended it. This is the weekly news recap here on Bald Prairie Real Estate. My name is Matthew Pfeifer, real estate agent in Regina. That's my trusted assistant, Matilda. This is where I go through the week's most interesting news-related topics all about Canadian real estate, give you my thoughts and opinion on it. So yes, we're going to talk about how CMHC knew that the foreign buyer ban would have little impact on the real estate market. We're going to be talking about how the government of Canada has spent or committed billions of dollars to build very few houses. Of course, you get probably already knew that. We're going to be talking as well. Saskatchewan's got a plan to try to get people building more rental properties in their own house, so secondary suites or laneway houses, and a whole bunch more. But let's start off with another one of my terrible bad dad jokes. What is a doctor that specializes in Adam's apples? A gynecologist. If you have a terrible joke that I can use in a future episode, put it in the comments below. Let's get into this week's news. Let's start off by talking about Saskatchewan's secondary suite program. This program was announced in conjunction with the Saskatchewan government rebating part of the PST on new construction. And what they're looking to do is have people build basement suites or laneway houses in their primary residence to increase the overall rental supply. How they're going to go about doing this is, again, it must be in your primary residence. It's got to meet all proper regulation, building codes, local bylaws, etc. The property has to have its own separate entrance, separate kitchen, separate bathroom. And if you do all that, then the government of Saskatchewan will give you a grant for either $35,000 or 35% of the cost, whichever is less. Again, I like these types of programs. Let's get people looking to build these types of suites. I think a laneway suite is going to be tough to do on a smaller budget, but this might make it make sense. A basement suite, though, I think this, $35,000 definitely is going to get you a long ways, depending on your house, to getting a basement suite put in. So overall, this is a good program, and it can be combined with the government of Saskatchewan's PST rebate on new construction. So a person could build a brand new property, or a builder, I believe, could do this as well, and include a legal basement suite that would, of course, offset the cost of carrying that mortgage and potentially help somebody qualify for that mortgage in the first place. So overall, I like this program. Next, let's talk about condo projects in Toronto being shelved because of low sales. If you've been following along on my monthly Canadian real estate market updates, especially what's going on in Toronto, you know that there's a glut of condo properties for sale in the resale market in Toronto. That's a huge part of their overall inventory right now. So it's not surprising that we're seeing Toronto have a very low number of new construction sales. And of course, there's a number of reasons why. The first is fear overall in the market. We're seeing prices decline. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. A lot of people aren't really willing to put money down and buy an investment property. And then, of course, interest rates. Right now, it's really tough to buy a brand new condo and have a cash flow with our current interest rates. It simply just doesn't make financial sense. Now, the number of condo sales is so low, it's, I believe, at like a 10-year low. And that's, of course, those higher interest rates and the overall uncertainty in the market, but also a large number of projects just simply haven't been launched because the financial market doesn't make sense to actually launch these projects. They just don't make money right now, given the current interest rates. So not only are people uncertain of buying these properties, there's a whole bunch for sale on the resale market. There's a lot of uncertainty overall in economics, higher interest rates. There's just fewer of them being offered for sale as well. All that's combining to seeing this really low number of new construction condo sales in Toronto. Now let's talk about the monthly CMHC housing starts statistics, and we saw a slight increase. Now this increase that CMHC is talking about is month over month. So about 250,000 starts is what they're tracking. Again, with all these CMHC housing starts, it's a rolling 6-month average. And I've been saying for a long time, 250,000 houses is nowhere near the amount that we need to keep up with our current population growth. That realistically need about 400,000 to 500,000 houses to be built in a year, and we've never built anywhere near that in Canada at all. And that, of course, would not chip into the already existing lack of houses that we have in Canada that existed prior to the last few years where we've seen this rapid increase in population. So great, okay, overall up 1% month over month. But year to date, new construction is actually down 7%. The biggest reason that new construction starts are down is there's not a lot of single family homes being built. Those have really slowed down rapidly. And the year to date numbers would be significantly worse if it wasn't for the fact we have seen actually quite a few new construction starts on multifamily, so apartment blocks, row houses, townhouses, etc. And with any stat that you see about the Canadian real estate market, and I've said it over and over again, there's no such thing as the Canadian real estate market. There's a whole lot of very hyper regionalized markets in Canada. If you look at Vancouver, housing starts are up. Montreal, they're way up, like 43%. And in Toronto, they're down something like 25%. So just because you see a stat that says housing starts are up does not mean that in the market you're looking that starts are actually going to be up. Next, let's talk about the November rent report from rentals.ca. Year over year, the asking price that rentals.ca tracks is up almost 10% at 9.9. That is down from last month's 11.1%. Again, it's important to differentiate between asking price and the actual negotiated rent price, and that really isn't a stat that's tracked that well, so that's why rentals.ca uses asking price. Just because somebody's asking it doesn't mean they're going to get it. This is the time of year that rent typically does decline. So seeing some stats show that rent has come down a little bit month over month, that's typical. But from what I'm hearing pretty much across the board when I'm talking to people that own investment properties across Canada, they are saying that yes, we are not getting quite as much for our rental properties as we would have a few months ago, but they are again attributing that predominantly to the seasonal effects right now. But for raw numbers, the average asking for a one-bedroom rent in Canada is $1,890. For a two-bedroom, $2,300. Of course, in Vancouver, that is more like $3,500, I believe, whereas in somewhere like Saskatoon or Regina, it's $1,400. There's a huge discrepancy across the country. Again, the Canadian real estate market doesn't exist. There's a lot of very regionalized markets. So depending where you're looking, this number could be completely inaccurate. The other thing I noticed when I was reading through this report is that they mentioned there's a noticeable uptick in people looking for roommates. This doesn't surprise me at all. The cost of life has gone up so much. And of course, just the cost of housing, whether it's interest rates or the price of rent, has gone up so much. People are needing to find ways to cut costs. And so we're seeing people looking for roommates a lot. As with all these news articles and this rent report, I'll put it in the description below so you can pull it out and read through it yourself. Next, let's talk about how Ottawa is spending $1.2 billion to build rental properties in Toronto. I've been saying for a long time, we need the government and all levels of government involved in getting more housing built in Canada. So I'm not going to complain that the government is trying to get properties built. What I do find a little bit interesting here is that it's $1.2 billion to build about 2,600 rental properties. So $460,000 per unit. Again, I get it. Building a high rise in downtown Toronto is expensive, but $460,000 is what the government is putting towards us per unit that's going to get completed. Again, these are not completed units. That's just what they're putting towards projects that are under construction right now. And the government, through this Housing Accelerator Fund, is hoping to get about 70,000 houses built by 2028. Now remember, CMHC had put out a report earlier this year that by, I believe it was 2030, Saskatchewan, Canada, is set to be short 3.5 million homes if we don't do something to rapidly increase construction. So government's going to build 78,000 houses. Canada projected to be short 3.5 million. A huge discrepancy there. Now let's talk about Canada's ineffective foreign buyers ban. I said when this ban was being talked about and then when it was put in place, it was nothing more than political theater and it wasn't going to have an impact on the Canadian real estate market in any sort of meaningful way. Now I have seen some people trying to say that, well, look at the current drop in home prices, that's that foreign buyer ban in impact. No, it's absolutely not. That's higher interest rates and a weaker economy, nothing to do with a foreign buyer ban. CMHC knew this, the government knew this, and yet they went ahead and put this in place, again, entirely so that it looked like they were doing something. CMHC's own data said that it would only impact about 2% of all transactions. That's 13,000 transactions out of almost 700,000 that happened prior to this ban happening. So this is not a major part of the Canadian real estate market. Again, yes, there are foreign nationals that will come in and buy properties with the intent of either hiding money from their government or they're just looking to sit on these as an asset and have them increase in value. Like, absolutely, that happens. But that's not the core problem in Canada. And this foreign buyer ban already had more holes than the Swiss cheese sandwich that I had. And then they went and added more holes. It's an absolute mess, and again, doesn't have any sort of meaningful impact on the market. They talk about in the article as well that in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, where a lot of people were clamoring for this because it was seen as such a significant problem. And again, there are more foreign buyers in those two cities than many others in Canada. But they were talking in this article about how already existing foreign buyer taxes, those had more of an impact than the foreign buyer ban ever would. And I cannot stress this enough. For years in Canada, we have tried all of these demand suppressing policies and not really anything to do with increasing supply. And in some ways, we're actually making it worse, of course, by having a population increase that just simply is well above what we can actually build in terms of housing in Canada. But we've started to see a little bit of a shift. You've got the federal government now going to remove GST on purpose-built rentals. That's great. I wish it was across all residential properties. And now a number of provincial governments, Ontario and Nova Scotia, have completely removed the PST or their portion of the HST, again, on purpose-built rentals. Governor of Saskatchewan now offering a partial rebate on new construction for all residential properties. So we're starting to see these things where governments are maybe taking note. Of course, none of them are removing all of the taxes on new construction because, of course, that's a cash cow and they need that revenue. But this foreign buyer ban, it's not the solution for the housing crisis in Canada. We need a lot more than that, and this was political theater that the government, CMHC, knew, but still put the ban in place anyways. Now, if you are thinking about buying a house, and as long as you're not a foreign buyer, I would love to help you out, of course, if you're looking in the city of Regina, but if you're not, you're looking anywhere else in Canada, you don't already have a great real estate agent, don't worry, I can help you out with that. If you look in the description of this video, there's a link to my calendar where you can book me in for an appointment. I will give you a call, learn about what you are looking for in a home and what you're looking for in a real estate agent, and I'll get you paired up with one of the great agents across the country in my network and make sure that you can find that great house. And if you want to keep up to date on the Canadian real estate market, why don't you check out my most recent monthly Canadian real estate market update. Like this video if you haven't liked it already. Please subscribe to Bald Prairie Real Estate if you want to keep up to date on the Canadian real estate market. Leave me some comments below. I love chatting with you guys in the comment section. And as always, thanks very much for watching.